Travis Wing Gazelle. So, let's get to Stephanie, shall we? So, before we start, we'll read from you the Doctrine and Covenants of the one and only section by Brigham Young, other than the Journey West. It's section 132. Joseph Smith did not write this. This was not his. This was Brigham Young's, because I've done the linguistic match to his own writings and to his endowment ceremony with the sealing ceremony. So this is not Joseph, this is Brigham Young's. He purposely put it in here to try to preserve polygamy before he died, because it was put in the year before he died. There was no existence of this section prior to. Just magically appeared with Joseph as the author, not Joseph. So, with that in mind, verses 15, 16, and 18. Therefore, if a man marry him a wife in the world, and he marry her not by me, nor by my word, and he covenant with her so long as he is in the world, and she with him, their covenant and marriage are not of force when they are dead. And when they are out of the world, therefore, they are not bound by any law when they are out of the world. Therefore, when they are out of the world, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are appointed angels in heaven, which angels are ministering slaves to minister. It's a redundancy of words, ministering and servants, if you saw that video I did the other day. For those who are worthy of a far more and exceeding and eternal weight of glory. And again, verily I say unto you, if a man marry a wife, and make a covenant with her for time and for all eternity, if that covenant is not by me, or by my word, which is my law, and is not sealed by the Holy Spirit of promise, through him whom I have anointed and appointed unto this power, then it is not valid. Brigham Young shoots himself in the foot here. He's claiming this is Joseph Smith, but in saying it's Joseph Smith, only Joseph Smith can marry. And thus Brigham Young has no authority to succeed to take this authority. So hilarious. Let's see, then it is not valid, neither of force, when they are out of the world, because they are not joined by me, saith the Lord, neither by my word. When they are out of the world, it cannot be received there, because the angels and the gods are appointed there, by whom they cannot pass. You shall not pass. They cannot therefore inherit my glory, for my house is a house of order, saith the Lord, passing by the angels who stand as sentinels, being able to give them the key words, signs, and tokens of the holy Melchizedek priesthood, and gain your eternal salvation, or exaltation. Brigham Young. Which, that in and of itself is another conundrum, because I still know the new name of Stephanie. And Karen. But Karen were still sealed, even though our marriage was annulled. And so I can sneak into the celestial kingdom, because I know the key words, names, signs, and tokens of the holy Melchizedek priesthood to gain my eternal exaltation. And yet I'm supposed to be the evil apostate. So, oh no, how will they know? You know, it's just one of those things where you go, yeah, this can't be right. There's something wrong with this. Something wrong with the logic involved here. So, as pertaining to Stephanie, after I bailed on Leanne, because you have to watch her video first. This is part 2. I was kind of in a bummed out state. I'm there at Rick's College, where it's a Mormon paradise. The majority of the students at Rick's were women. And it was like 4-to-1 ratio, something like that. Just the number of female dorms to male dorms in and of itself. There's like 8 female dorms and only 2 male dorms. They took out, I think they took out mine, last I saw. Mine was the Ensign Hall, and I don't recall seeing that one when I checked before. And they took down the brick house, but, you know, they were trouble. Those who stay there are troublemakers. And so you'd think that for Mormons this would be an excellent opportunity, just like a singles ward. And now everybody is laughing who know about singles wards, and how it's interesting how you can get so many opportunities for marriage and yet there's no one to marry. And that was kind of a bummer. And it's possible that I wasn't doing the same tactic that I was prior to my mission, after my mission. However, being a returned missionary, women's red flags went up. As I was in Norco, living in Corona, Norco Ward.
Timothy Cordova, you have a visitor in the lobby? Yeah. Timothy Cordova, you have a visitor in the lobby.
I had to give my return and report in that ward, and waiting for the summer semester to begin so that I can get back up to Rick's after my mission. And I was invited to a party at a home of a peer whom ended up getting married while I was on my mission. And she had a younger sister, but I didn't really consider her as an option because of the vast age difference of 3 or 4 years. She's way too young for me, and I'm way too old for her. But in the course of trying to enjoy myself at the party, out of the blue, she makes a comment to me about how my being a returned missionary is not going to convince her to have us date. And that was weird, that she would just bring that out of the blue. But it humbled me before I even had a choice to be humble first, or be compelled to be humble. And so I was compelled to be humble before I even knew the subject matter. And so there was lots of pressure as a returned missionary that we now have to go hunting for a wife. 7 brides for 7 brothers. I think we'll have that as the theme song rather than a Barry Manilow one. Put a quarter in the jukebox, if I can remember. And heavenly eyes, but all those thighs. I think he says, oh, that size, but brides, 7 bros. And it's cool because Catwoman, the original Catwoman, is Dorcas. So that's awesome. And so getting up to the dorms, that's where I stayed for the first summer. Well, it was actually the last summer term, I think. My fellow bros in the hood were telling me that I had to wait a year. That was the rule. I cannot fall for the trap of falling for the first girl I meet and marrying her in 2 weeks. Apparently that was a thing. And I did make it. Barely. It ended up being Friday the 13th. 92. So I was 2 months away from a full year. But Stephanie wasn't the first, obviously, because Leanne was there, and then Michelle. Sorry, Michelle, we're not going to talk about you, as I explained in the first video. And so I was sort of cast out of women's presence, cast out of the Garden of Women because of being a returned missionary. And so I was sitting by myself. I think it was next to the Ensign building that was kitty corner to the Man-Wearing Center, in that little patio area thing, sitting on one of the benches. I noticed a pretty attractive woman walking across, heading up into the red light district. Yeah. I didn't know what a red light district was at the time. Sort of guessed by the clues and from the songs of my youth, which could also be used in the description below. Lady Red Light, Roxanne, those kinds of songs. But which would be appropriate because music was part of the culture. And I actually did see a red light at one of the apartments there, which was very weird. But they gotta pay for their college somehow. Anyway. And I wasn't thinking about her per se, and I think that's how I recognized her, is because of walking by the ticket booth at the lower level of the Man-Wearing Center. One of the MTC dorm missionaries recognized me. He was a twin, and so that's how I remembered him. And he was in line to get the homecoming football tickets, and he informed me that they're free because we paid for them already with our tuition, and so I got in line with them and we got our tickets, and I wasn't really much into the activities because, like I said in the other one with Leanne, they had made it a requirement to be involved with certain activities in order to graduate with your humanities associate's degree, as a core curriculum for everybody going there. And but I had the ticket and I went. I was late. The whole stadium was filled when I got there, but my seat was open as it was next to him. And then Stephanie and her roommate were next to him. And I was having a malnutrition seizure, and when those happen, I get a little goofy in my behavior before I have the crash. And I shouldn't have had a malnutrition. I was there with my grandparents, but I guess I wasn't thinking about eating as I should have. Nonetheless, they gave us, thanks. They gave us their phone number, and we were supposed to call them and hook up and blah blah blah, and not the hook up as known today with the red light district, but to do stuff together. And I got home that night, realized that it was one of my episodes, and threw it away and I'd forgotten about her. And then I think it was Michelle, or no, Michelle was the summer, and so it was Leanne after that. And so I recognized her as she was walking home from class. And I kept sitting there, and I think it was for a couple of weeks before she then recognized me. And she came to me and approached me. "Hey, you're from the football game. Yeah, your friend, he's been over all the time." Yeah, he knew how to work the system. And so we started dating, and then at one of the evening entertainment in the basketball stadium, which was used for other things, I think it was a play that we were watching, at the end of the play, I found that we were holding hands. And as the crowd, you need to hold hands to make sure you both get out of the crowd. And so I was just being a gentleman. But we happened to walk by my ward, which was strange, because I didn't really go, and I don't know how they knew me. But nonetheless, we passed by the door, and somebody saw me, and they noticed we were holding hands, and ooh. And then but didn't stay, and took her home. And over the course of time, I wasn't planning on marriage because I passed on Leanne. But in the course of my sulking, we had spent a lot of time together, and helped her through some migraines. And I realized while she was doing dishes, she loves it when I say that, she's the one for me. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Yeah, I can't watch that movie. I'm going to burst out and cry. As much as that is an excellent movie. But I decided I was going to work on marrying her, because after my mission, I designed my own planner, and I designed how to search for a wife using the missionary investigator records that I designed and created on my mission. And that immediately fell apart. I had plans, lofty goals to be dating a different woman for each hour of the day. if necessary. That, yeah, it completely, utterly failed, just like Lucifer. And so I was going to ask her to the dance that was coming up, when the friend said he was going to ask Stephanie. And maybe I should have let him, although Melissa, Clayton, and Emma are adorably cute. But I guess the male nature kicked in, and I thought I needed to conquer Stephanie first. He ended up marrying the blonde roommate, just in case you're worried about his eternal salvation. They probably lasted longer. But nonetheless, I proposed while we were on a trek out yonder. She had her vehicle that she brought with her, and so I proposed along the way, and so apparently, despite having proposed, she thought she needed to secure the deal by pushing the boundaries of, oh no, we violated the law of chastity, but we didn't. And she was just trying to ensure that I was going to marry her, rather than an eternal engagement, or get me before I graduated or something like that. Nonetheless, my bishop at the time was my uncle Bert, who lived there in Rexburg, and so she wanted to go see him rather than her bishop, and so that's a lot of fun. And so yeah, it was a setup to involve my uncle, so that he obviously had me call my mom, and I was using Rick's to escape from home. I didn't want to go back. And so I immediately, upon graduation at high school, went to summer school at Rick's to get away from my parents as quick as possible, and stayed there during the Christmas break, and then came home only to do my missionary farewell and do the temple thing and head out on my mission. And at the end of my mission, I did the paperwork to get right into school. So I was at home for just a brief period of time, because when you have Mormon parents who follow the gospel of Lucifer, you don't want to be in that family. You don't want to be in bondage. You don't want your agency taken from you. You don't want your parents to tell you how to live your life and what you're going to do with your life. And so I wanted to get away as fast as I could. And that's a problem in Mormon marriages too. Because if your parents are going to do it, then so will your wife. And I didn't know how to identify a wife who would not be that way. And so it was a pretty good bet. That's why the video is titled The Dangerous Mormon Wife, or whatever I titled it. Is that because of their faithfulness and loyalty to the church, they get extremely strict and take away people's agency in the family first, not beyond. And Stephanie became that kind of person, to take away other people's agency by being a very controlling, domineering, needy, in the sense of entitlement. And she got worse after succeeding in abandoning our marriage and fleeing the country taking the kids in my Paleo-Hebrew research, saying that my kids will never learn Hebrew. She said her kids, but in my quotes. So yes, the anti-Semitism was in her mindset because of what the church had done to us. And I didn't realize that I was an anti-Semite by just going around telling people that Joseph Smith was a Christian and that Jesus Christ came and visited him. I had no clue that I was actually being the worst of human behavior. And so yeah, it pisses me off now that I know what the church has been doing to me my whole life, and doing to others of you. And so even though you think you've escaped the church, become an ex-Mormon, if you've embraced Christianity, you didn't really escape. You just went out of the fire into the frying pan. Not the pan and the fire, because the church is the fire. You get it? If I have to explain it, it's not funny. And so we weren't allowed, because Nelson changed it in 2019, to get sealed in the temple because of what Stephanie pulled. And I was, everything in my brain was screaming, run, get away from her, stay away. But Bishop, my uncle, didn't give me that option. He didn't give me Avenue C, Covenant Path C. he because I had to agree that what she was claiming was true, even though I had no clue what a blowjob was. Had no clue, because we didn't do it. Nonetheless, my alternative, having called my mom, was to go home to be with my family. That was not an option for me. And so I slapped on the ball and chain and bit the bullet. And he married us, because bishops are allowed to marry in the church. And if you've watched my videos that increasingly angered the prophets about sex trafficking, well, I am a victim of the church's sex trafficking, because the government of the United States and the various states accept a bishop who marries a couple. And bishops aren't required to only marry Mormons. They can marry anybody. They have the authority, and the government accepts their authority, and they can do it. And on my mission, there were several examples of couples who were living together, and we were informed that if we encounter such a case, that we need to inform them that they cannot get baptized until, one, they live in separate places. They can't live together anymore. And two, they need to get married. And then we can work on getting them baptized. And then they gotta wait a year for their sealing. Well, this is criminal, especially with Stephanie, who is a half and half. She was born in the Provo hospital, but her parents, her dad, is Canadian. Her mom was from Texas. And they lived up in McGrath, Alberta, Canada, with the Mormons that went north. And so she's half Canadian. And the church does not accept a regular civil marriage, nor do they accept a marriage by a bishop, even though bishops have authority, according to the government. Because the church demands, with the forced payment of tithing, that we get sealed in the temple. Section 132. We didn't have to get married according to Section 132. The people on our mission who were just living together, they didn't need to get married. Again, this is something that the church is not practicing, despite the scripture talking about it. Because just living together is of equal force to being civilly married or being married by a bishop, because it's not in force when we're dead, and so it shouldn't matter. But now Nelson has settled all that in 2019, so the church is no longer involved in sex trafficking anymore. Oops, wait a minute, they still are involved in sex trafficking. That's a different issue, because sex trafficking is when a sex crime is taken out of the country, and even state to state. It applies there too. I do have the law code, because I again reminded the court today about this issue. It is 22 USC 7102. That's the defining of sex trafficking. And I was able to go through the list and check. Because by being forced to pay tithing in order to go to the temple to be married, which I've already gone over in the videos that have angered the church, the prophets, the sealing text corresponds with the law of obedience. And for those of you newbies, you used to have to obey your husband. And then they tried to trick women into hearkening unto the counsel of their husbands. And no, the sealing and the ceremony text still made it slaves, sex slaves to their husbands. And now Nelson is pushing for polygamy with the law of chastity change. And so don't be too confident that Nelson's no longer sexist and therefore the church is no longer sexist. It's a trap, to quote Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi. But in my case, because Stephanie is Canadian, we just got married. Our lives are now ruined because we got married out of the temple, so we don't have blessings. We're ostracized. And so, because of Canada, she took me to Canada, and the free babies, they pay you for babies, and cheaper education, where I learned Paleo-Hebrew and deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And that's where I am today. But I had to do lots of cash check jobs because I'm not a citizen, and I never became a citizen. They worked on trying to get me permanent resident status so that I can get the cheaper education, but it was unofficial. I lost a Blockbuster manager trainee job because I didn't have permanent residency status, and they created a conflict to get rid of me, rather than coming outright and saying, well, you don't have your permanent resident status, you can't go to British Columbia for the big meeting that you're required to go to for your training. So they decided to sabotage me and fire me, which was fun because Melissa had just been born. And yeah, that kind of hurt. as my home, it's gone. I checked that also. Our home was gone. Man, put new subdivision homes in that area. And so, because the church requires us to be sealed, because we have to pay tithing, which is a debt, look up the law, you'll see the payment of debt owed. Yeah. It's atonement money. We pay tithing as an atonement to Jesus for his atoning for us. They totally botched Malachi and the whole purpose behind Malachi. That Brigham. Sneaky, sneaky. And the church was even shut down because of his tithing fraud with the slave trade from the European saints coming to Utah. They owed the debt to pay it back through the tithing, through the perpetual immigration fund. And so that was this deal that sealed the deal to shut down the church, because they tried to shut down the church for polygamy. That's why Brigham Young was inspired to put in section 132 and claim it was Joseph's. And it succeeded. CNN, fast facts about the LDS church. Oh, Joseph Smith put it in the 1835 edition. What? No, he put in a whole chapter on monogamy. CNN, who are you talking to? Where are you getting your facts from? Certainly not somebody who knows, and definitely not the Joseph Smith papers. Dear God. They didn't even bother to fact check their work. Fake news media. No wonder they're struggling. And so are getting sealed in the Cardston, Alberta temple on the 13th of March, 1994. Right? No, 1993. Because it was 92 on Friday the 13th, and then Saturday the 13th, 93. Okay. And year to the date. And so, yeah, we had Melissa that wasn't born in the covenant, because we're wicked and evil Mormons. And that was her attitude. That she was like part of the mindset of Mormons at that time, who were trying to figure out loopholes in Mormonism. And we were chastised as teens about Mormon kids who were finding loopholes. One particular loophole was BYU students who would go down to Las Vegas for the weekend, get married at Elvis's marriage and putt and stuff, or gambling casino, and go to a hotel room, bang all weekend, and then at the end of the weekend get an annulment and head back to BYU and never see each other again. And take a different person the next week. And so that was caught and stopped and exposed and condemned throughout the church. And then the repentance video of the woman who's going to get married, but she doesn't say, nope, there's nothing in my past that I need to repent of that hasn't been dealt with proper authority. I'm good. Let's get this marriage going. Nope. Instead, she had to bring up an issue that we're not privy to. and ruins her whole life. And they try to make it as if, oh, it was the best thing for her. No. She ruined her life and ruined her marriage. They got divorced 10 years later. They don't tell you that part of the story. And and so, it's just hilarious. I should probably put that as the thumbnail, but I already have the thumbnail up. And so we got involved in, I was sex trafficked, even though I'm the presider of the home. And because of her mom being from Texas, she was not a strict Mormon. she was a Mormon who pushed the boundaries, which then carried on into Stephanie's behavior, as she was the firstborn child. And with her dad as being a pushover to her mom literally wore the pants in the Mormon family. And that was emerging in the Mormon church at that time. Women in the church were cooing the family patriarchy. And I don't understand why women continue to complain about the patriarchy of the family when women have already dominated the family and cooed the family administration. Men don't wear the pants in the family, and I hear it over and over again every time I went to a priesthood meeting, an elders quorum. It's just, men are so beaten by their wives that they, make comments of, oh, my wife is so much more spiritual than I am, and oh yeah, she wears the pants in the family, and yeah, and whatever she says we do, because women hold their husbands sexual hostages. Sextortion is being used in Mormon households by the women because we're not taught proper sex education, and so women don't understand a man's sexual biology, just as men don't understand a woman's sexual biology, except to know that we fear it. And so my being thrust into the fire of marriage, I was able to use my education and scientifically identify, oh, you're on a 4-week cycle. And I was able to know through her behavioral changes when it's coming. And so despite women getting angry with me for knowing this information, the secret mysteries of women, sorry women, I was able to identify Kimberly when I was dating her after Stephanie's abandonment of the marriage and eventual temple ceiling cancellation, that she was 3 weeks. And I told her, oh, I noticed you're 3 weeks. She went, really? Huh, I didn't know that. She didn't go through the mood shifts as severely, but I still was able to recognize. But yeah, it was very interesting. And I was also able to help Kimberly. We'll just talk about Kimberly. We'll make her the fourth. But she dumped me because of the charity debate. I don't know if you guys watched that video. But she was getting really stressed one day. And I took a look at the surroundings, saw that things were kind of out of place and messy, so I just started picking up and cleaning up. It was primarily to avoid her wrath upon me, but having cleaned it up, she then all of a sudden was cured. I fixed her problem. And women don't want men to fix their problem, but I fixed her problem. We really have to start loving each other rather than being mean to each other. As much as I now understood the comedy shows about couples and jokes about marriage, they're not jokes. They're literal true. And so, like Homer Simpson says, it's so funny because it's true. I can go on memory lane for hours on this one. But, yeah, she got hooked up with people who helped enhance her behavior of wearing the pants in the family. As she hung out with other husband bashers. And I hoped and tried to encourage her to start hanging out with John Penny's wife, because she was more of the friend that I was hoping she would hook up with, but she didn't. She embraced the Nazi girls. The leader of the group's husband committed suicide in the hospital up there in Lethbridge. And the news report refused to investigate her because they claimed that he had mental problems, and so they let it slide as a suicide. He was just fine. It was his wife that ruined him and drove him to do it. She just put too much pressure on him. And I saw that with Stephanie doing it to me. She, all of a sudden, what we had arranged at the beginning of our marriage, she wanted to cook and clean and to stay home. So I said, okay, you want to do it? Great. I'm willing to help, but if that's what you want to do, okay, I'll let you do what you want to do. And she wanted to make sure that the kitchen was organized the way she wanted it, because heaven forbid I do it the way I would organize it, because it's wrong. Nonetheless, I could easily cook the meals. I was taught and trained and educated on being a chef, and even was starting out in one of the jobs up there in Lethbridge as a Denny's chef for breakfast. But I still struggle with eggs. I don't know how people are able to crack them without the pieces of egg, and then peeling hard-boiled eggs. Dear God. But nonetheless, I know how to read a recipe and make whatever. But nonetheless, she wanted to do all that woman work, as the church calls it. And so I was responsible for going out, and she had no interest in what I was doing. She just trusted that I was going to provide for the family, and I always did, but the husband bashing group laid down the law and got her to do it to me. They purposely were getting Stephanie to ruin our marriage and destroy it, such that the final year, when I'm learning, had learned biblical Hebrew and was now doing research as I'm finishing up with Greek, she was conspiring behind my back to abandon me in Utah. And she had gone down to visit her grandma in Texas with her mother, and she took the kids with her because it might be the last time they'll see them. And while they were on their journey, they of course talked about how to ditch me and live a different life without me. And so, yeah, lots of problems emerged as she physically abused me, mentally abused me, sexually abused me, all to destroy the marriage. And yeah, she was a prostitute. She gets very violent when you talk to her about it. Where'd you get this money from? It's money I saved up. From what? I'm the one that had the grants from school. Where are you getting money from? And when Emma was announced as being conceived, I was trying to do the math calculation of 9 months from conception, or the cycle period, and I'd missed it by a month. Oh, did she get furious? This is your baby and you're gonna pay for it. What? Yeah, but yeah, she came with me down to Utah because I had contacted my mom, and she says, oh yeah, the Olympics is coming to Utah, and lots of businesses are going to be made available, and you can get a job, and we're getting a new home, and it's going to have a basement that you guys can stay in. Mom didn't tell me that the basement was unfinished and that I was supposed to build it. But nonetheless, I'd hoped that being married would help my parents fulfill my patriarchal blessing of being proud of me, so that they would leave me alone and not try to control my life. Instead, they ruined my marriage to control my life. as they helped Stephanie abandon the marriage and flee the country. So much for the family proclamation that they threw in my face. And there was violence that she committed against me in the presence of our children that I was blamed by my dad for. And despite having confessed to my parents, the parents didn't believe her and still blamed me and helped her leave. And the bishop cursed me. He's, if you've watched my videos for some time and you've heard about him, I refer to him as Lester the Child Molester Nielsen, because he thought it was funny to expose himself in front of little kids. And so, yeah, he cursed me as I was kicked out of my dad's home. And he's still not dead yet. I can't understand, because Karen defied my wishes and sought out and found and contacted my mom. And found out that my dad had quadruple bypass surgery, and yet my mom's now dead. He's still living. So I can only assume that my mom died of COVID, but refused to get tested for COVID. And thus, they didn't know what it was that she died of. And just called it natural causes or a sickness or whatever. Because again, if you saw the videos, I did the video of, oh, my mom's dead. Because I was looking on the internet, wondering if they were dead. Because she hadn't contacted me since September. I still haven't read her final letter to me. And that's now packed away, being held hostage in my storage unit, if you've been watching my videos. So, yeah, this is the danger of Mormon marriages. Is you can be the good person and do everything right, despite the economy, despite the government laws, despite the church. And if you're married unequally yoked, oh my God, you guys just don't get it, do you? I try to warn you. I expose Nelson. I purposely mock him because you mock evil, just like Elijah, just like Jesus, just like Joseph Smith, just like all the good prophets mock evil people. But Mormons blame me. And dear God. And so that's why I talked about it with Leanne, about how Leanne would have been different. As I saw patterns of what I could have similarly gone into, despite the obvious differences with the different marriages. And it was just, it was sad all around to be betrayed and abandoned and sabotaged to what now has become my bestseller on Amazon. She stole it originally, and that was having redone it when I went to the church, talked to F. Michael Watson, secretary for President Gordon B. Hinckley, about my discoveries, and he had instead contacted security and had a troublemaker file created for me, because they're not the good guys. They're white supremacists, and so they hate the Jews and all things concerning Jews, such as their language. But I didn't know it back then. I was just, the church sabotages us to make us naive and ignorant about the world and about sexuality, about how to live and survive in the world. They just throw us out there, and we're just supposed to trust Jesus. Jesus will cure all. He'll fix everything for you. And not the case. I was thrown into the fire and got burned. Got me burning in the 3rd degree. Another appropriate song for the description below. And so, yeah, that was that big tragedy. And she came back to haunt me. I let her go. She got away with what she did to me and got remarried. And I let her go. And yet, when I was preparing to marry Karen, yeah, she snuck behind my back, told the bishop, oh yeah, it's great that Travis is moving on with his life. And instead, she went and told the First Presidency with a special letter secreted to them that I was involved in pornography and that I had not paid child support. Oops. She sort of forgot that in 2008, when the church locked me up and disappeared me for 6 years of my life, that the Office of Recovery Services had reached out and contacted Stephanie and said, hey, he's locked up for the rest of his life. Do you want us to cancel the child support? She said yes. They canceled the child support. I was officially no longer owed or indebted to pay the child support anymore. And so there was no back child support, none of that. But I still had to get their letter certifying that I didn't have to pay. And so she was exposed for having lied to the First Presidency to sabotage my second marriage. Which, depending on if and when I can do it, this is an hour, dear God. But yeah, this is the big one. This is the big one. Although Karen was the big one too, because of what's going on right now. She was the pre-show for because I'll get into it when I talk about her, whenever that is.